Hey guys, it's Tina here from Prim Heirloom Designs, and today I'm going to show you the process of making the shepherd and sheep from the Nativity series. So the first thing is you're going to need some sulky, and you're going to print the patterns out on the sulky sheets. You're going to want to make sure that you print it to scale or at full size on your printer. And there's a lot of small pieces on this one, so it's the sulky or freezer paper are good options for that. Then you're going to want your wool blend felts. These have all been pre-shrunk, and if you buy the kit for this, you still need to pre-shrink your felt for this project. Normally this is the fur that I use to create his vest, and how I do that is I end up cutting the pile down on this so it's quite short and using it almost like a fabric, so you get this really neat effect. So you can do that. But today I'm going to show you with a scrap piece of leather. I'm going to use this side, and so I'm going to make his vest out of just another material, just so you can see how that will go. And then I also have a piece of coffee stained muslin. We call it cotton sheeting up here, but muslin's practically the same thing. And all you're doing for that is you're going to mix up the coffee stain, list it in the pattern, and take your fabric, put in there, soak it, pull out, squish out the excess and let it dry. And the wrinkling is great. You want it to look a little bit old and tattered, so that's perfect. Then I've got my embroidery floss colors ready to go, and pipe cleaners. A piece of, this is a faux suede. You can use real suede if you would like. It's just a piece of lacing that you're going to use for his little pouch. And along with that, a little bead. And oops, so I've got this little one I'm going to use today, if you can see that. And then you're going to need a 20mm bead to do his face. If you buy the kit, you get the head already pre-done for you. And then I've got two 8mm beads. Here I have the markers that you need for this. So I've got 3 Sakura Jelly Roll markers, 1 red, 1 black, and 1 brown. And next we have the wool. If you can find this really cool wool that I have here on the left, it adds really nice texture and a nice shade of white to the sheep. But if you can't find that, then I've got this alternative. It's just a plain white wool or acrylic yarn you can use, and that's what I'm going to be using today, so I can show you how that turns out. And next I have sheep wool stuffing. You can also use polyfill if you can't get a hold of sheep wool. And I have a rock. This rock I found in the garden. Went out and looked for something small that had some interesting shape to it, and that's for the shepherd to sit on. All right, other than that, you're going to need a stuffing tool. I've been using tweezers a lot for these small figures. They've been working really well for me. And you're going to need some basic sewing supplies, hot glue gun, white glue, the usual stuff that you've been needing in all of these figures. So first we're going to start with the sulky sheets, and we're going to cut around each of the shapes, leaving a border around them. Don't cut along the final line yet. And then they're going to get stuck to the corresponding felt colors. And if you're looking for the color map, it will be linked below. Hey guys, okay, so I've cut out my sulky sheets roughly around each pattern piece, and now you're just going to take them and peel them off and stick them to the corresponding felt color that you're going to be cutting them out of. And I'm just going to show you for the vest. So I've decided to, instead of using the faux fur, I want to try this thin piece of leather that I got my hands on, and I'm actually going to use this as the right side, not this, just because I like this suede kind of look about it. So I'm going to go ahead and put those pieces directly on here, as though you would with the felt, and then the boot cuffs as well. They're done with that same fur, but I'm going to try this out in leather. All right, so I've got all of my pattern pieces put on each of the colors I'm going to be using. And this particular pattern, you don't need to pre-embroider anything. You can actually just cut everything out around the edge. Those are indicating the eyes. Do those French knots after you assemble the bodies. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out all of my pieces except for like these really small ones. I'm just going to leave them on there, leave them as is. All right guys, so I've got all of my pattern pieces cut out, and we're starting this pattern with the body. And peel the sulky off of that. Okay, and then you're going to take your 4.5 inch pipe cleaner and then bend it, and that's going to get glued in the center of these legs like this. Okay, and then you're going to take this shorter piece that you have here, and that'll be the kind of his spine up into the neck. And then you're going to take one piece over the other, and I've got my matching floss, and I'm going to start stitching around the neck and come all the way around. And as I start to round up here, I'm going to start to stuff the body, and you'll just kind of be stuffing the body as you go. You can see that I've just rounded around the bottom of the first leg. So at that point, I'm going to grab some stuffing. I will use tweezers for this. Whoops. And just start to get some stuffing in there. All right, and then continue to stitch stuff as you go. All right, so I've got the body complete. I've done all the whip stitching and stuffed him. And the next thing you're going to do is take your pants front and back and peel off that sulky. And for these, you're just going to put one on top of the other. And you're going to start by sewing in here. You're going to just do a whip stitch. Just start at one end and you'll whip stitch all the way around there. All right, and then once you've sewn in that area, you're going to take the body, put those pants on them, and now you're going to sew the outsides of the legs up one at a time. They will be tight, and that is definitely how you want them. So you can just start at the top or the bottom and whip stitch one side at a time, the pants onto the body. All right, so this is how your figure looks so far with his little pants on. Now we're going to move over to the boots. All right, so I'm going to take one of my boots and I'm going to sew along here and around the toe. All right, so you can see my first boot I've sewn up until that point. And now I'm going to come back to the body and feel where you've got that pipe cleaner, that's his back. So you want to make sure that the front's facing you, and these little feet, you're going to bend up. You're going to bend them up to kind of form feet. So you want 5/8 about is what you're going to be bending at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm about there. So from this point, kind of bend it up. And you can do that because you've got that pipe cleaner in there. Then you're going to take one of your boots and pop that in over top. And then you're going to sew the rest of this shut. And you want this boot to be over top of what's there for the pant. All right, so then you're going to sew that. And then you're going to do the same to the other side. All right, so I've got his two little feet and boots done. And then I'm going to take my boot cuffs, right? And these I'm just going to glue around that top. Yeah, I'm going to have them around the top and then have the seam meet at the back. And then if you've got a little bit of extra there, you can trim it down. I'm just going to do a little bit more glue in there. And I'm going to do the same to the other side. All right, next we are moving on to the arms. So you're going to take your arms, the front and the back, and orient them as such. So the shoulders up here and where the hands are going to go is down here. And you're going to take the two backs and put your pipe cleaner piece along there and bend it out. And don't worry if it comes out too far. You do want some of it to come out because you're going to be putting a bead on there. But if it's too far, we can always just cut that extra off. All right, so those are just going to get glued into place. Okay, and then you're going to take your tops and line them up over top as such. And then you're going to take your cloth and you're going to start to whip stitch. Start at one end, come around, stop about there to start stuffing it, and then continue on with your whip stitch. All right, so you can see I've sewn all along here and I've stopped at this spot, and I'm just going to take a little piece of stuffing and my tweezers and push that in there, and then I'm going to continue to sew and stuff the rest of this arm, and I'm going to leave this bottom open. Okay, so you can see I've got both arms fully stuffed and I've got the bottoms left open, and I'm just testing these beads on here. So you can see I need to cut off a little bit of that pipe cleaner because I don't want it sticking out past the bead, and that looks way better. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue that on and push it on all the way so that pipe cleaner comes right up to that end. And this one I definitely need to cut a good amount off, judging how much I want to take, and that'll go on just like that. Okay, so then those will get put aside, and next we're going to work on the shirt. Got the shirt front and the shirt back. The shirt back, I'm just going to go ahead and put it right behind the shirt front. And I am going to sew a running stitch across the shoulders. So the way I'm going to do that is take my matching floss and you're going to try like a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which means the distance between this edge and where your stitches are should be about a 1/4 inch. And you're just going to do a small running stitch along. If you had a sewing machine, you could easily throw this on your sewing machine and just stitch those little bits up. Right, and I'm just going back on myself. So it's like a running stitch, but you're going back on yourself. All right, and tie that off, and then I'm going to do the other side. All right, so I've got my 2 seams done at the shoulder, so I'm going to flip this the other direction and fit that little opening in between the shoulders through the neck. Now you can kind of use where this shirt ends as a guide for where you want to put your arms on. So I'm going to be sticking one arm in there. Let's go in here with some glue. All right, and then the other arm is in here. Okay, just give a moment for that glue to set. All right, and then you're going to come in with your floss and go underneath that arm, and you're going to whip stitch these sides closed. All right, and once you've got that shirt sewn up, you're going to take these little collar pieces and line them up like in the photo, in the instructions. They're going to go on like that. So you can see that one wraps around that side and stop it kind of in the center. Okay, and then the second one goes on this side, and the same idea. All right, next is the vest. So I'm kind of excited. Like I said, I haven't done this out of leather before. I'm excited to try it. So I'm going to position my pieces. So I've got, this is the inside of the vest, and then I've got these 2 pieces, which will be the left and right sides. All right, so I'm going to start by sewing, and this might be hard to get through. Let's see. Oh, no, this leather, it's not too bad. And if it's a thin enough leather, again, you could probably try this at a sewing machine. If it gets too hard, I will often use needle nose pliers if I'm hand sewing leather. And then you can also try different needles. Different needles have different sharpness at the tip. And you may find, like I have a feeling I just need a sharper needle. So when I go to do the other side, I am probably going to switch this needle out. And I probably could have done a better job on matching the embroidery floss color to the leather itself. All right, so you can see I've done the 2 tops. And I'm going to take the vest, put it over him, and then sew up the side seams until I'm kind of just underneath where his arm is. So I'll just be whip stitching along here. All right, so you can see the figure here now with the vest on, and that's looking pretty good. And at this point, you can already start to play with him and give him, shape him so that you can see what he's going to look like. So I'm folding him kind of where his waist is. And I might even try him out on the rock that I got, so you can see how a fun time to do that. So we can move on now to the pouch. So I've got, this is the pouch back, pouch front. All right, so you're going to take these pieces and line them up like so. And you're going to start to whip stitch around. I'm just going to get rid of that little bit of extra fluff. You're going to come in and whip stitch around these 3 sides here, just like this. All right, so you can see I've got my little pouch sewn around 3 sides, and you need the tiniest little piece of stuffing. And we're gonna put that inside of the pouch so that it gets a little fullness. And then you're gonna take your piece of cord, and that's gonna get, both ends are going to get glued inside of here. So just little bits of glue you need. And put one end on that side and the other end over here. And then this will get folded shut. So a bit of glue there. I'll hold that for a moment. Okay. And then it gets finished off with just a little, whoops, a little bead on the front. So I have these little wooden beads that I thought looked nice. All right, and then you're gonna sling this pouch over his shoulder. You can pick whichever shoulder you'd like, and it'll end up resting like that on the back. And then you can glue it in a couple places if you don't want it to shift around on you. So I might add just a bit of glue in this back area, maybe up towards the neck. You can also throw a stitch in there, or you can just let it dangle around a little bit. It's totally up to you. And I might throw one little bit in here, just the tiniest little drop of glue, just to kind of tack it in place. All right, now we're gonna move on to working on the face. So I've got my markers here and I have a pencil. So I'm taking my bead, and again, I have a guide here. If you wanted to use that, you absolutely can. We'll draw a center line on this bead, and I'm picking the side of the bead that has kind of the stripes running this way. All right, so if you're going to use this guide, what you're going to want to do is pull it off the backing and line up that center line with the center line you've just drawn. And then you're going to just use this as a guide to draw through on the other side. The features, as you can see them, you may use like little dots for reference or something, but that'll give you an idea of what we're doing. I'm just going to freehand it, but it is whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to start with the eyes. And then he gets, his mouth is down about there. Okay, and then his hair. Coming up. Like that. And then his eyebrows. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'll start with my black. And then for the mouth, I'm going to use my red. I am going to come in here and erase it just a little bit because I just need a hint of a line, and I don't want my pencil mark to show through with the red. Okay. And then the brown, I don't have to worry about erasing that pencil line because the brown does cover it up. And let's see, I just don't want to touch anything I've already drawn because I don't want to smear. Okay, and now I'm going to come in. Okay, and then I'll just show you. I just take this, even though it's a fine marker to do this. It'd be nicer if you had a thicker one, but I have yet to find this shade. I really like this shade. It's kind of a nice reddish brown for hair, so I end up just using these thin ones to fill these in. And the only part that is really seen, if you can see the final figure, is here and like a little bit at the side. So you could also cheat, which I'll do on this bead so you can see how much I'm going to fill in. Okay, so you can see I've filled this in. I haven't gone all the way around because I'm going to show you that normally I do, but you don't necessarily need to take the time to do that because it won't be visible. All right, and then assuming you've waited long enough, you can go ahead and erase these pencil lines without smearing what you've done. So now this head will get assembled to the top of this neck. So I like to reach in there and make sure it's pulled up all the way out and give it a little twist, and you can try your little head on there. that assembled. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the written pattern, and I'm just going to get his hood on him. And you're going to line them up, this, and you're just going to whip stitch from this corner all the way down to this corner. I'm actually going to start down here. It's right there. Alright, so I've got that seam sewn, and now this can get put right on the head. So you're going to line up this center seam with kind of the center of that hole. And this is where you can see if you came far enough with that, with the marker. And I didn't quite here, so I am just going to go back and fill in a little bit more on his head. Alright, so I'm going to retry this hood again, and now it looks like it'll cover up those areas nicely. So I'm going to pull this, I'm going to put it about there, and you just need a couple of drops of glue to hold it on. And I'm going to just throw a drop of glue in here. I want this tail kind of dangling down, like that. Okay, and you can kind of pull those into place, something like that. Okay, so now we can go back up in the pattern, and I'm going to do some detail on these boots because they're kind of plain looking. So I've got actually 3 strands of my brown, and I'm going to go around and define the top. You're going to want, they're kind of like, you're trying to make them look kind of like moccasins. So with my brown, I'm not going to knot it, and I'm going to come in here and come up close. This isn't how you do begin cross stitch. And I'm going to do a couple of little small stitches really close together with that end underneath the stitches so that it's kind of secured. Okay, and now I can cut off this tail, and I don't have a big knot that I have to worry about on this boot. So I'm going to continue and do this, just the stitching around. Alright, so now I've got this going all the way around, and now you're going to do kind of the bootstrap sequence. So I'm going to go across here a couple times first. Okay, and then I'm going to go up. I'm just kind of following along. And then I'm going to create this big cross. I'm going to come through here like this. Cross there. And then down here. And then I'm going to come up. Alright, and then I'm going to come out halfway up. And go up to the top there, and then go halfway down, that, and across there, and come out that side, and then I'm going to do these 2 side pieces. That, okay, and I think I'm going to add 1 across the top, like that. I want to hide where this comes out, so I'm going to go up there with it. And kind of tie off in that little corner. And then you can kind of push your knot hidden, just like that. Okay, So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So I think next we're moving on to the sheep for this guy. And I just like to crush him and play with him so that I got his, so you can see how he's going to look. I'm very excited. The next step is to work on the lamb and the sheep. So I've got my embroidery floss and start with the lamb head. So I'm going to save these pieces of sulky that have the eye and the nose on them just for reference. You don't need those till later on. And I'm going to take my 2 lamb halves, make sure they're lined up, and I'm going to start. I actually want the stuffing opening to be at the back of the head, so I'm going to start here and whip stitch around. Okay, and now when I come to this area, I'm going to grab my stuffing, roll it in between my fingers. I'm going to use my tweezers for this and get as much in there as I can. I've got way too much, so I'm just going to... Okay, once that's filled, I'm just going to sew up the back with my whip stitch. Alright, and so then I'm going to do that same thing with the sheep, or sorry, with the lamb body. Alright, and I'm going to start my whip stitch here. And again, as I come down, like we do with the arms, when I come around this curve, I'm going to already start to stuff that cavity. And I'm going to continue my whip stitch up to the top and keep stuffing as I go. You can see I've made it up to this point and I'm just adding some stuffing in while I can. And then I'm going to continue to whip stitch up here and stuff as I go. Alright, so I've got my lamb body finished. I've got it sewn all the way around. It's stuffed. So the next step is to take your white wool yarn and you're just going to glue it in place so it will hold onto the body. Like so. And you're going to take your wool and kind of glue and wrap as you go. So I'm just going to secure that a little better down there. Okay, and I'm going to glue along this side because I'm going to wrap back there first. And catch the rest of that glue with a bit of yarn. So every once in a while, you do want to add a little bit of glue to hold it, like that, and then keep wrapping. Okay, when you get up to this tail end, I'm just going to kind of fill that whole bit in with glue. Wrap and hold it kind of in place. Alright, and there you go. And if you want to, you can just come up, which I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to glue this one little spot in there. All right, and I'm going to come back up, just do a couple of more little wraps and finish up kind of under the head area, because when the head goes on, that'll hide where I've done my final gluing of this yarn. So I'm just going to push that in on that bit of glue. Cut it off, and then if you need to come back in and glue any stragglers down or cut them off, whatever your preference is. I'm going to try to glue it down. Okay, and keep in mind, one of the sides of the lamb will be held against the shepherd's body. So, you know, one side needs to look as good as you can. If you've got your straggler pieces on the back, you do not need to worry about that. It will not be visible. Okay, and the next thing is you need to take your little lamb's head and glue it on the body. So you do want to make sure you've got this oriented correctly. So I know that that's where my nose and my eye is going to go, which means if you can see the sample, his face is coming out from the body. So if I've got my body this way, I want my head to go on top like that, okay? So I'm going to just add a little bit of glue there. And glue that little head in place. See it from the side. All right, and then the next bit might be a bit tricky. So you're going to take 2 strands of black embroidery floss, and it's going to be tricky because it's hard to do a French knot with just a couple of strands. So if you've got a smaller needle you can move down to, I would recommend that. If you have problems that your French knot keeps getting pulled through to the back, add a third strand of floss and that'll be fine. So you want to pick a hidden area at the back of the head. So I know this part's going to be hidden down here from the, I'm just trying to find a spot that doesn't have glue in it. I'll go over here. Oh, maybe I'll go up here. Because that's going to be against the shepherd. So I'm going to come in there. And for eye placement, if you would like, you can reference these little pieces. So I can see that my eye is going to start about there. So I've pulled up my floss through and I'm coming through there. So I've got an idea where I'm going. And I'm going to pull that through. And then I'm going to wrap it twice and go through there. And you can either, again, visually judge it, or you can use the pattern piece to figure out where you're coming through on the other side to form that other eye. I'm going to pull this tight and just go gentle. Don't tug too hard because that very well may possibly go through your opening on the other side. So I've got this little eye there. Now I'm going to repeat that on this side. I'm going to wrap that twice. Come back through close to my opening but not right on it. And I want to come down through where the nose is going to go. So again, I'm going to use this for a bit of reference so I can see where I'm coming out, which is about there. And flip back over onto this side. Make sure that's out of the way. Okay, and pull that French knot through. If you have struggled because you're pulling through at an angle to create that second eye, from here you can always come back out the back of the head, then come into here and form your eye, then back out, and then down and form the nose. It's whatever works for you. So now I'm going to take a few stitches across. This is kind of like a satin stitch. I'm trying to get them as close to each other as possible, just to form that bit of a nose. And as I go down, I'm slightly decreasing the width of my stitch, so it ends up being a bit of a triangle look. You can see that. Okay, and that's probably good. He's just a very little lamb, so he doesn't need a lot. And then to finish off, I'm going to go through the head to the back where it will not be seen. There you go. And I'm going to tie off back here. All right, the next step is to put the ears on. So you see, I have not cut them out from here yet because I was afraid of losing the pieces. So I'm just going to cut them out now. All right, and the way these ears gets glued on is you're going to orient the ear. So that back here you'll see it's at a bit of an angle, and that piece that juts out further, that goes at the top, and you want to glue these rearward of the eyes. So about there is where I'm going to glue it. Just going to throw a little dot in there, pop that little ear on. Okay, and then I'm going to take the other one again, making sure that that piece that juts up is at the top, and that'll be going on this side. Just like that. You're going to take some makeup, wet some blush here, and my favorite Q-tip to use for these little guys, these are a little bit worn out. I still use them for bigger stuff, but these Q-tips are amazing. I will link them below, but there's this pointy one that I really like because you can really get in little fine details. So I'm just going to give them a little bit of blush on the cheeks. And you pick your favorite color there. Okay, and there he is. And then the last thing that you don't have to do, but I like to do, is I like to go over. There's usually some like stray hairs that are kind of annoying that are still kind of coming off of your your yarn. So I'm just going to shave them up a little bit with my scissors. All right, and there's the little lamb, and this is the one that goes into the shepherd's hands. So we can already put him into the shepherd, and we can already actually put the shepherd onto his rock. So I've got my rock here, and I'm really happy that I found this rock. It's really cool, but you'll find something that'll work. And if you can't find a rock, just, I don't know, find something that he can sit on, because he really looks good sitting. I could even position this like that so his back's a little bit against that piece that's jutting up, which actually I really like. So I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to just glue him in place. Just on his bottom there. And I didn't bother, I kept this out because frankly I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it, but I actually like that. And yeah, so you've got his vest along here. If you find that the vest is too long, you can always shorten it up if you wanted. And I'm going to stick the little lamb in his little hands. So for this arm, in order to be holding the lamb, I am going to need to bend that pipe cleaner inwards a bit. I want him to sort of be hugging that lamb. All right, and then this one can just be at the side. So this may take a little bit of manipulation how you want him to be holding him, but kind of like that, I'm thinking. So then again, you can do this with a stitch, or you can glue it. I'm gluing his hand into place underneath the little lamb. And then I'm going to take here, and I can see exactly where I want it to be, his hand on the sheep like that, so he's really holding him. And then this, you can always again glue that down into place, but you can also just hold it down for a moment and it'll probably come into place. All right, and there's the shepherd holding his little lamb. So now we're going to go ahead and do the sheep that sits just at the bottom there. Very similar method here, only you've got the addition of the two legs there. So for the sheep, again, you're going to start with the head. We're going to save these pattern pieces, and I'm going to start to whip stitch around and leave the back open like I did with the lamb. So this is the sheep head done, so you can see it's just a larger version of the lamb head. And I've already started to whip stitch around the sheep body, and I'm just stuffing again as I go. I'm getting that stuffing into the back part of the sheep first. And once I get that nicely filled, I'm going to continue to go around and stuff as I go. All right, so I've got my head and my body done. The next step is to work on these two sheep legs. So I've got this one, which is the front leg, and I'm going to pull the sulky off. All right, and I'm going to orient it like this, and I'm going to start to whip stitch around, starting here, come around that curve, and stop here, stuff that cavity, and then close off along the top. So again, this is just with a whip stitch. And I'm just going around like so. Okay, and you can see I've done the whip stitching, and I'm just coming in this part that I left open, and I'm going to use the tweezers again. They work very well for this small stuff. And push it in, and then continue to whip stitch that shut. All right, and then I'm going to take now the second. This is the back leg, and I'm going to line them up. And I'm going to start here, whip stitch around, and stuff as I go, because this is a much narrower piece. All right, and I've stopped part way, and this is, again, just like the arms and everything else you've been doing. I'm just scrunching up some stuffing. Even though this is a lot smaller, you can still get it in there to give it a little bit of volume. Okay, and once I've got that stuffed, I'm going to keep going with my whip stitching. All right, so the next step is to take your front and rear legs, and you're going to take these little tiny feet, and the rear leg, if you can figure out which side is which. I know it's hard once you sew it and stuff it, but the bottom of this leg has a slight curve upwards, and so you're going to want to orient it like that. And again, I'm just following along the pattern with the pattern, and these are just going to get glued he's got his little toes there. Just a little drop there. Okay, and for the front leg, you're going to want the toe to be on this side. And if you need to, you can go around. Either whip stitch that black piece in place or go around with the glue to secure it. All right, and then now we're going to go around with some of the yarn. Start on the back side. Glue that in place. You need to take a piece of metal, hold that down while it's gluing until your metal releases. There you go. And I'm going to pull that in the front. Okay, and a single pass of yarn is more than enough for both of these legs. All right, and I'm stopping just where I'm coming up to that toe. And I'm actually going to go ahead and cut this here and pull this back and secure those pieces in that wet glue. We'll start with the sheep body, as this is the same procedure as you did for the lamb. So I'm going to start with a bit of glue to hold this in place. All right, and then wrap that yarn around. It's a bit easier because it is a bigger form that you're working with. Okay, and like the lamb, when you get to this point at the end, just add a little bit of glue in there. Cover that back area up, like so. And then I'm going to continue now backwards and do a little bit more wrapping and just glue in the areas that I know I'm going to be going over. Like that, give them a little more volume. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to cut this off and secure that end inside. So I might use the end of my tweezers to kind of fold that up. It's nice to do, if you're going to do it like this, make sure you've got something that's made of metal, because it will cool off that glue and it won't stick to it. Like if you used a wooden skewer or something, it would try to stick to it. But something metal won't do that to you. Okay, now we've got our little leg that will literally probably take 2 wrappings and then it'll be filled in. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and cover both sides because this one's so small. And honestly, I can probably just do this with the one piece of yarn, so that is what I'm going to do. All right, and there's the other foot. Okay, so I've got the small pieces done the exact same way. And you're going to position these on the bodies. They're facing each other like this. So I've got my body here, and this one is going to go on the front like so, in here, to hold it in place. Push that down. And the back one is going to go back here. And these little legs are actually going to keep him able to sit by himself, which is kind of neat. All right, and then next you're going to take the sheep head, and again, like the lamb, it's going to face forward. So you're going to find your location, which is at the top here. All right, and here you're going to do the same thing you did on the lamb. So take your black yarn and pick a spot where you don't think the black will be visible. So I'm going to come through down here actually, because I feel like I can hide that with a little bit of yarn if it's showing. And then I'm going to take my sheep head. Oh, it'll be this one. And I want my eyes to be approximately up there. So I'm going to go on in and try to find one edge of that circle, which I've done. Pull that back off, make my French knot, come in close to there, and try to line it up nicely on the other side, or you can use that pattern piece as reference again. And then on this side, 2 stitches and come in here. I'm just going to show you another method to what I did with the lamb. Is at this point I can come through that bottom. If you found it too hard on the lamb to come out and automatically start with the nose. So I'm going to pull that tight. All right, so now I've got my eyes, and now I'm going to come back in, and we're going to use this piece again to sort of judge where that nose is going to start, which is up here. About there. There you go. So you can see it's very minimal what I've done back there, and I'm gonna hide that at the end. And now, so like the lamb, you're gonna come in and start to form that nose. You're gonna do a satin stitch, just 3 or 4 of them across, and decrease in the width as you go down. And then I'm going to do kind of a final one in order to get my thread back to the rear of the head. All right. And then back here I'm going to tie off. I did a messy tie off by accident, but that's okay. You may have the same thing happen to you. So I'm going to cut that off. And because this might actually be visible, because this lamb is freestanding and there's nothing behind him, I am going to take a little bit of extra yarn here and go in and cover up the area that I got real messy on. And that's clean that up. So I'll cut that nice and short, and that's not bad at all. So I'm going to leave that like that. And next I'm going to put his ears on. I've got my 2 ears here. It's the same thing. This high point is going to be, this must be the one that's on this side, because it curves around. You want that little curved bit of ear to be facing forward, and these get put behind that eye. So I'm going to use a drop of glue there. Hold it. And then do the same thing on this side with this one. So I'm looking for my high point. That'll come up there. It's going to be like the mirror image of that one. Glue that that on. How cute is that becoming? All right, and then the last step on this one is I'm gonna grab my blush again with that pointy end, and I'm just gonna come in and give them a little bit of color to those cheeks. Just like that. All right, so you've got now your shepherd, lamb, and sheep all ready to go for the nativity scene.